The White House is making a fresh effort to secure a ceasefire in the Middle East before next month's US presidential election. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is heading back to the region. It is his 11th trip since hostilities began. He'll stop off in several countries, including Israel. The Biden administration has warned the US could withhold some military aid to Israel unless more humanitarian assistance gets through to Gaza. In the meantime, there's no let-up in the fighting in Lebanon.
Smoke rises over the suburbs of Beirut. Israel says it was targeting financial institutions run by Hezbollah. It accuses the militant group of using the network to fund its attacks. Lebanon's health ministry says Israeli airstrikes have killed more than 1,400 people in the past month. Israel's military campaign appears to have weakened Hezbollah. The group once said it would continue attacking Israel until there was a ceasefire in Gaza. But after losing much of its leadership core, Hezbollah now says it supports diplomatic efforts led by Lebanon's elected leaders. Those leaders, Prime Minister Nabih and House Speaker Nabih Berri, met with a special envoy from the United States to lay out conditions for a possible ceasefire deal with Israel. Washington's main message: Hezbollah does not have the leverage to demand a ceasefire in Gaza anymore.
And I want to be very, very clear. Tying Lebanon's future to other conflicts in the region was not and is not in the interest of the Lebanese people.
In Gaza, there are also daily strikes. According to the Hamas-run health ministry, more than 42,600 Palestinians have been killed by Israel's military, with many more missing and presumed dead under the rubble. Israel's government has vowed the war won't stop until Hamas no longer poses a security threat. The militant group launched a cross-border attack on Israel on October 7 last year and is still holding around 100 hostages in Gaza. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees says the ongoing Israeli assault on Gaza has left hundreds of thousands of people trapped. In this hospital in Gaza City, medics treat civilians wounded in attacks in the north of the territory.
7 martyrs and a number of wounded were taken to Al-Ahli hospital. Most of the martyrs were children and women, and their legs and hands had been cut off. Our teams are still looking for more martyrs.
Unlike in Beirut, where diplomatic talks for a truce with Hezbollah are at least underway, a ceasefire with Hamas in Gaza seems a distant prospect.
Let's now go to Stella Mena in the Lebanese capital, Beirut. Stella, let's start with Hochstein's visit. What did it achieve?
There were no precise agreements, just words and promises, but this is actually what we have been expecting here in Beirut. Hochstein has said that the US has a high interest in ending this war between Hezbollah and Israel very soon. He emphasized again that the way to end this war is through implementing the UN Resolution 1701 that was the end to the war in 2006 as well. He said that both parties, Hezbollah and Israel, haven't done enough throughout the last couple of years to really implement this agreement, and that that a ceasefire or a peace in Lebanon should not be linked to a peace in Gaza anymore. So far, this is not really anything new. Hochstein has set this position and these arguments repetitively over the last couple of months. The question now is more how does the US want to force both parties, Hezbollah and Israel, to really commit to the implementation of Resolution 1701, as it hasn't really worked out 2006 and the years afterwards.
Now, last night, Israel carried out airstrikes against a group it says is financing Hezbollah's military wing. Tell us more about this group.
So the group that has been targeted is named Al-Qat al-Hassan Association. Hezbollah says it's a charity organization. Israel and the US say it's an organization that Hezbollah uses to finance its terror. We can imagine the association as something similar to a bank. It is mainly known for giving funds to people, for people here in Lebanon, especially people who are in a more weakened financial situation. These loans are quite attractive because they come with a zero interest rate, as well as people can deposit gold like jewelry that is very common here to give as a present during weddings, and they can use that as a deposit to achieve and to get this loan from the association.
Now, the Israeli military has also apologized for the deaths of 3 Lebanese soldiers killed in an airstrike on Sunday. Have there been any reactions to this in Lebanon?
So the Israeli army said that its soldiers had accidentally targeted the army vehicle by the Lebanese armed forces, and then in a strike that then killed 3 soldiers. So far, there has been no reaction from the Lebanese army towards this apology. It is also important to mention that there is no independent observation that has looked into this incident so far. It is also important to mention that this is not the first incident that happened. The Israeli army has targeted the Lebanese army as well as the UN peacekeeping troops in South Lebanon before. Both the Lebanese army and the UN peacekeeping troops are not involved in the war, but they are positioned in South Lebanon as they work together on stabilizing the situation and monitoring the situation. So Israel's army is well aware of the presence of both troops. So it shouldn't really come as a surprise that vehicles by both the UN and the Lebanese army are present in South Lebanon.
Stella Menner, they're reporting from Beirut. Thank you very much, Stella.
All right, for more now, I want to go to our Beirut bureau chief, Mohammed Schrader. Mohammed, good to see you. You know, this feels like an 11th hour attempt here at some type of diplomacy. Did Hochstein's visit, did it achieve anything?
So the U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein arrived to Beirut this morning, and this appears to be his last visit to Lebanon before the U.S. American presidential election. The mediator is trying to propose a ceasefire deal based on UN Resolution 1701, which stopped the war between Lebanon and Israel back in 2006. But he said, it's probably far-fetched at the moment. He's not proposing amendments to the UN resolutions 1701 so far, but he said he's engaged in talks with Lebanese and Israeli officials to ensure the implementation of the resolution, which he said both parties of the conflict did not make enough effort to implement over the past 18 years. Now, the big question is, what are the means of implementation, and how does this affect Hezbollah's presence in near the border in southern Lebanon, for instance, and whether Hezbollah is, ready at this stage to detach this front from Gaza? These are questions that still need to be answered. Israel obviously is seizing this opportunity. It sees Lebanon as, in a weak position after this, ground incursion and heavy strikes on Hezbollah over the past 2 to 3 weeks. But, we don't know at this moment if this diplomacy will lead to a ceasefire. In fact, a common sentence I heard this morning from many observers here in Beirut is, we expect a big escalation following Hochstein's visit.
Yeah, interesting. And speaking of escalation, I mean, these talks came after overnight airstrikes by Israel against the group that Israel says is financing Hezbollah's military wing. What more can you tell us?
Yes, it was quite a tough night here in Beirut. After a dozen of Israeli strikes hit the southern suburbs, targeting offices and branches of Hezbollah's financial institution, Al-Qard al-Hassan. It is portrayed by Israel, of course, as a bank that finances Hezbollah and its military activities. But here in Lebanon, it is a very controversial institution, so to say, that operates outside the official banking and finance sector. It is basically a micro-funding body run by Hezbollah with the aim to provide loans for mainly the Shia community as part of Hezbollah's social welfare. The Israeli military yesterday sent evacuation orders to Lebanese to evacuate their positions near more than 31 branches across Lebanon for Al-Qard al-Hassan. And this has caused serious panic and chaos. Yesterday in Beirut, people rushed to evacuate their positions at proximity of the institution branches, including in central Beirut. We saw hundreds of cars and people taking the streets. Many of them spent their night in public spaces and parking lots yesterday.
GW's Mohammed Schrader with the latest from Beirut. Mohammed, as always, thank you.